republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, turn on your microphone, please. Take up my mask while I read something here to start the meeting. So let's, Lori, if you'd call the roll, please.
Councilmember Phelan?
Present.
Councilmember Blake?
Here.
Councilmember Rainville?
Here.
Councilmember Greenberg?
Here.
Councilmember Bryan?
Here. And take a motion to approve our short agenda for tonight.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
so moved.
I second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So I want to, first of all, thank those of you in attendance here tonight for attending tonight's meeting. For some of you, we've got some very exciting potential news. For others, we've got some good news, but it's not necessarily on our agenda tonight. We do have somebody in the audience here who can help you out with that good news. But what we're going to be addressing here tonight is our internet usage as it relates to, our CARES money as it relates to internet. For those that got excited, I'm sorry that some of you may have read negative things on Facebook about what the council has or has not been working on. It's a good example, in my opinion, of the quote I have on my wall from Abraham Lincoln, which says, "The trouble with quotes on the internet is you never know if they're genuine." We have a regular council meeting still scheduled for next Tuesday night, and we'll be discussing more details about what we're utilizing our funds for, where we use them, what additional things we're doing. We have a time-sensitive opportunity here, and therefore we have this meeting tonight. Because I want to explain that we as a council, for those of you that aren't aware of it, can't meet in more than two of us at a time, or two of us talking about a subject. So it really makes it difficult when you're trying to manage projects. Quite often, the council here is hearing information the same time you are there. And it's out on the internet before we've had a chance to do anything about it. So that's one of the challenges. It's called open meeting laws. And in open meeting, we are restricted about what we can discuss outside of an open meeting like this. So sometimes it may seem a little confusing up here because council members literally are hearing things for the first time or having a packet where they get to ask questions for the first time. So I do apologize for that confusion. So what you'll find up here is quite often we're discussing background information to give context to issues that we'll be voting on here. But as I said, you'll be hearing it at the same time they are. You'll have questions, but I'm going to address it since this is a council meeting. I'll address what I hear from the members here. It's not a public forum per se tonight. So last late July, early August, we received Federal CARES Act money. Money came from the federal government to the state government to the counties and then to us as we applied for it. And we received that money late July, early August. Our original intention was to take a look at the money we had. It's $358,000 and some cents. To take a look at the money we had and say, what could we do to improve internet service for whatever portion of now then that money would extend to. And so Councilmember Dan Bryan and I have been working on, I've been working on internet solutions for at least 6 years. We got Connect America Fund monies from CenturyLink in the northern part of the city, went from dial-up to reasonable service, depending how close to the node you are. The farther away from their center, the slower the speeds. Councilmember Bryan and I were meeting with the county. I'm trying to picture when we started, but it was well before the COVID shutdown because we were actually meeting in person. And the County Economic Development Authority was trying to get internet providers to come to a meeting to say, what can you do and now then? So we invited Comcast, Arvig, CenturyLink, Frontier, and Midco. Only one provider showed up to the meeting. Midco is currently in St. Francis. They showed up to the meeting, and we explained our situation. They came back with a proposal to cover the entire city. It would cost us $9 million. If you've seen our budget, you know that's quite a few of our budgets put together, and we wouldn't be able to do anything else. So we are still in discussions with Midco on what that would take if we took it in bite-sized pieces, and could we do something along with federal funds? Could we do something along with state funds? Or what other funds might be available? But at that point, nobody showed up. We continue to work with the EDA throughout the summer to try and find some reasonable solution to utilize the CARES money to provide internet service for now then. Unable to do that, when September came around, the county finally said, it's not going to happen, you're going to run out of time to utilize your funds, so you should start looking elsewhere. We have a list that our clerk treasurer and our emergency manager provided on projects that would likely fit the CARES money requirements and could still be done yet this year. We picked 2 items that would take the bulk of our monies. One was an expansion on the fire station, and another one was a potential expansion here in City Hall so that we could maintain safe distancing. The City Hall is used for seniors, used for community events, used for committee and commission meetings, and obviously council meetings. So we wanted to do something here that allowed us to be safer in how we are operating. Certainly with our fire department, we have an expanding fire department. Now that we're going to have a fire department, we'll have more firefighters, and they're crowded into a very small space where they have to get in and out of their gear. And so we're trying to do something that allowed provision for them to be healthier. We will be discussing options on the fire station next Tuesday at our regularly scheduled meeting. We have quotes that I just now gave to the clerk treasurer, so she will have a chance to process that sometime before that, hopefully get information out to the council so we can discuss that in detail. Significant part, it's about 50% of the CARES money we were given would be dedicated to that project. What happened though is, as we looked at other opportunities to utilize the funds, we continued, Dan and I continued to pursue the county, state. We've been working with Senator Klobuchar's office. We've been working with Tom Emmer's office, Kurt Dowd, Michelle Benson. Anybody we can get to answer the phone and say, how can we get service in now then? And what happened is we got together with state agencies, DEED, Department of Employment and Economic Development, and the League of Minnesota. And DEED actually works with the people applying for broadband grants. And so they know all the players. And the League of Minnesota City knows all the players. So when Dan and I called them and said, we're desperate for help, what can you do? They came to the table and said, we can get meetings with these people. And in the last week and a half, we've had meetings with Comcast, CenturyLink, Arvig, the city of Scandia, who has a project similar to ours going on. There's been numerous meetings going on. And we've asked people that previously had turned us down, suddenly their bosses and their bosses' bosses are paying attention to what's going on here now then. And the reason for this meeting tonight is we have an opportunity in a portion of the city to bring in broadband, fiber to the door, in a portion of the city that's basically shovel ready. One of the providers, Arvig, has a access to a point right on the corner of 65 and 22, right by St. John's School, that would provide a backbone down to the southern edge of our city and cover our western edge of our city all the way over to Burns Parkway. And so for those of you not familiar with it, this is the map of Nowlin, and we are sitting right here right now. The area we're talking about is south of 22 to our western border, to our southern border, and Burns Parkway over to Ball Street and Wild Run East. So it would be this quadrant of our city. And the reason they can do this is because they have access to a Zayo fiber at this corner that they can light up. And under the right conditions, they can bring a backbone down through this area. And for the CARES money requirements, you have to utilize the funds by November 15th of this year. They could get a number of these homes wired up in that time. Now again, they have to sell the product. People have to want to buy the product. And those that do, they could have, in this area, here and here, we currently, by federal standards, have no service. Okay? And those are the areas we're targeting. We have areas down here that I checked, and people are getting 60 meg down. That's pretty good. You're over here, you're getting maybe 6. So we targeted these areas with the idea that this project would cover all of these areas by spring. Now obviously it's going to shut down over winter construction. There may be some lines laid actually in yards to get us through, but we're going to do everything we can if the council approves use of the funds for this project. Now that being said, I will discuss later what about the rest of this. We also have another dead zone down here, what we call Rogers Lake area. That's a dead zone which we have some options for that aren't part of this meeting discussion. When we call a special meeting, we have to stick to the topic, and the topic was internet funds for that usage. They don't apply in this area because right now there is no fiber or cable provider willing to come in here. We continue to talk with CenturyLink, Comcast, and others, but there is a extremely viable and I think great option for this area that we can discuss after the meeting. The rest of this will be taken into account as we see what's fit. There is a fixed wire option for a variety of parts of the city that aren't currently getting internet, and there may be other fiber options as we grow. But right now, the reason we're talking tonight is this is a time sensitive to get our November 15th deadline, and because they just came to the table Tuesday, they're telling us if we give them the go-ahead, they'd like it this week, but by next week, they will start purchasing product and start working on that. So this is the area under discussion tonight. We still have other CARES money. At this point, and again, there's been some misinformation that we've been sitting here doing little or nothing. Our clerk treasurer has been diligently pursuing opportunities and making sure that when we do have expenditures that qualify for CARES funds, she applies the money to that. And to date, we have utilized $18,250 of that CARES fund as Lori has seen fit to do here. Again, we held on to it because we wanted to see what the internet solution might be. Previously, we talked about modifications to the city hall here. What I am going to propose tonight is we take and put that on the back burner for some future date and utilize the money that would have gone into that expansion and apply it to this project. The project would be funded 50% by the provider, 40% by the city, and 10% by the property owners that would sign up for it. There would be a charge, one-time setup fee for the property owners, and the portion that's missing right now is the portion from the city. So I would propose that we take $140,000 of CARES money that would have gone into this building, apply it to the internet solution. In addition, we thought originally on Tuesday night that would be sufficient. We had the CARES money available, that would be sufficient. Turns out that to get the unserved areas served, they have to put a backbone in all the way through that area. And if we only served those two neighborhoods, that'd be about 70 homes. They would have to bear the brunt of the entire cost of the backbone, which would quadruple the price to those residents and make it less likely that they would be interested in signing up. What RVIG has proposed is they would cover that entire quadrant, Viking to 181st, Burns Parkway to the border, plus Wild Run East, which is approximately 180 homes. And that way, the infrastructure costs could be spread out over all those homes and reduce costs to the homes. So that meant we would need to come up with another $200,000. So we've talked to the county. We have our Commissioner Matt Look here with us tonight. He was instrumental in helping us get through some of the paperwork at the county. We've had a very good relationship with our commissioner, with the chairman of the county board, with our county administrator, her staff. And so we've been working diligently with them to say, where could this money come from? And Commissioner Look first looked into additional CARES money that the county has, but after working with the administration, it turns out that money is not available for a variety of reasons for us to utilize. But when we were looking into that, the county administrator realized that we have an HRA EDA fund of about $800,000 available under the right conditions for the city to use. And so it's been proposed that we utilize that money to cover the additional $200,000 that we would need as a city. So what I asked Councilmember Rainville to look into working with county staff to see what it would take to utilize those funds. And again, part of the reason for meeting tonight is the EDA with the county meets on Tuesday during the day. And they would need to have all this information and approval from us prior to their meeting so that they can process this and approve or deny the request, and we can then tell the RBIG if they can go or not. So it's a lot of information. Give you a little time to process it, and then I'll allow the council to ask questions before we actually go to motions. But to clarify, the nuts and bolts is I'm going to be asking that we authorize $140,000 from the CARES expenditures, or CARES funds, to go to this project, and an additional $200,000 in HRA EDA funds, should they be acceptable usage of those funds, to also go to this project to cover the city's 40% cost. So questions from the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
the property, and I know this is all new, so property owners that determine that they're gonna go with this, do we know what type of costs? And I know it'll be based on how many, but an average cost, is that an upfront fee? Is it a monthly like they are doing with the gas expansion, natural gas
It
expansion?
would be a one-time upfront, $250.
Okay,
And then currently their expected cost, and the service goes from basic, they'd be typically offering 100 meg down, 50 up. But they can go gig down, gig up. It just, there's a different cost structure as you go up in speed. But basic service, they are expecting if you want 100 down, would be $83 a month in the projected model that they provided to me this morning.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Blake.
do we know how many people in this quadrant already are hooked up to some type of internet service and might not be willing to change over to a new one?
We do not at this point. That would be for the provider to go door to door and find out. Their model is based on 70% of these homes wanting the service. Their experience has been, if you have nothing right now, you'll want the service. If you
Right.
have something but it's not reliable or not fast enough, this would actually be fiber right to your door, as opposed to, one of the problems we have in a lot of the city is they're running off copper coaxials, and the copper lines are not reliable and can't be boosted in speed if you wanted more speed. The other option they said is when they do go door to door, even if somebody has service, once they present their program and their opportunity, they do find that people switch from the service they do have to a better opportunity as presented to them. But they would be looking for 70%, which is about 120, 124 homes out of the 177 to 180 would need to sign up to keep these rates. If they don't get that many to sign up, then adjust the rates accordingly.
So this area goes from, where's the hookup, did you say?
It's right near St. John's,
Okay, St. John's, and it goes down,
down Baugh.
down toward, like Gordon's Nursery, that area. And then it goes,
And the first two phases would be down Baugh to 190th,
okay,
Phase 1 comes St. John's School right here,
yep,
comes down to 190th,
yep,
comes over to Burns Parkway,
yeah,
down Burns Parkway to Wild Run East. The
okay,
backbone would go all the way down to Gordon's Gardens and would come on those houses that are on 181st, Burns Parkway, Burnside Trails, would be Prairie Acres and Bailey Estates.
okay,
So later additions would be, what would be coming in the spring, would be these pockets here, would include Rolling Hills, Burns Country Estates, and Twin View. This is Hallis, where we did the road project
Sure.
last year.
yeah,
And it would include up here, off Hedgehog, Burns Parkway up to Now Then Boulevard, and Country View Acres here. So it'd be everything west of Now Then and the Parkway, and south of Viking.
okay,
So it's 6 phases. They would have all 6 potentially done beginning of next year, next construction season. We haven't had any offer like that in the years I've been doing this.
okay,
Now, we have had, the reason we had this ready, because 2 years ago, I had this plan with Arvig, but we couldn't afford it and they didn't follow up on it. Their price at that time, the price of this entire thing is about $1.2 million, but the majority of that being borne by Arvig. The other nice thing about it is that puts a provider finally in our city that can help us expand and hopefully attract providers from other areas to want to expand, because Now Then is finally in the marketplace. It's not hard to imagine. We haven't discussed it yet because we have a deadline. So we said, what can you do this fall? But as you take a look here, another dead zone on the federal map is all this around Twin Lake and all on the border with Elk River. So there's an opportunity in the future to start expanding out from here. It's also an opportunity to invite Comcast in from Oak Grove, Midco down from St. Francis, Comcast up from. So at this point now, it's the providers who want to get in here can be aggressive and start moving forward. In the meantime, we have pockets throughout the city where there's pockets over here off of 185th, down in here where there's dead zones. There's pockets up here where there's dead zones, and over here. We are working with somebody to provide fixed wire services to that, which I think is an extremely reasonable option at an extremely reasonable price. Reliable service that can utilize our flat terrain and get people service where right now it's going to be quite a while before anybody actually runs a fiber to those homes in the middle of nowhere. So we have a couple of good options that have just appeared literally within the last 2 weeks. Other questions from the council?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainbow.
And just to clarify that the HRA funds, every taxpayer, every property pays a portion of their tax, a portion of their taxes is for the HRA, and the county holds that money. So that's monies, those are monies that are already in the bank and have not been touched. So it's not this would not affect our budget. We've set our budget for 2021. We'll stay with our budget for 2021. The CARES funds, that's money that's in the bank from the federal government down to the state to the county. So that again will not affect our city budget whatsoever. So I think it's an excellent opportunity to get out, as they say, get out the gate and get something established. And hopefully that will bring the other providers in, and we can throughout the years expand on that for the residents.
And to the point, the HRA money has been sitting there for quite a few years,
Yes.
untouched.
Mhm.
We think this is a good opportunity for development, appropriate development, get internet service to now then. And again, we appreciate Commissioner Look and the staff at the county helping us through the HRA, because we haven't utilized those funds previously, they're walking us through the process to actually access those funds. The other part of that, and part of what people have been saying on the internet, it's true that any funds that aren't utilized, aren't committed contractually by November 15th will go back to the county. What the county doesn't use by November 30th will go back to the state. What the state doesn't use by the end of the year goes back to the federal government. And states are begging for more money, so states really don't want to be sending money back to the federal government and saying, please give us more. That being said, we don't want to do anything wasteful or unwise, so we appreciate that our clerk treasurer has been very diligent in applying the regulations to our expenditures and making recommendations, which again, we'll discuss more on Tuesday. We wanted to get the big fish out of here, because if we did this 140 and the projected, if the fire station is to go, it would chew up a lot of our funds along with what we've spent already. So then we could utilize what's left in things that are on our list, and certainly utilize the funds in a planned way, because we've had this list since summer. We would utilize it in a planned way for things that definitely are COVID related, pandemic related, and utilize them within the time frame required. So there is no concern about utilizing the funds. We just wanted to make sure we were doing it the wisest way possible. And literally, these openings came up as late as Tuesday. We've had discussions these last 2 weeks. It's been Zoom calls from 7 in the morning till late in the evening. But we've made more progress than we've done in years. And so it's a unique opportunity. Other questions or comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Greenberg.
so I think the work that you've done in the past 4 years to bring us to this point is appreciated, and same to you, Dan Bryan, and thank you, Matt Look, for tipping us off on the HRA funds. And I think this is a great idea to take those two funds and couple it with our whatever we have from the city to bring it down and get some progress made. I know some of the providers are a little apprehensive to come into a community that's mostly rural, but we've attracted one now, got enough density down in that corner to make a good return on their investment, which is what they're looking for. Ultimately, those providers want to make money, so they don't want to string wire in the middle of a field. They want to make sure there's houses there.
And you're right about that. They do have minimum criteria. And so that's why it's been difficult out here. We appreciate our open spaces, and we want to keep those open spaces. But we do find those challenges when it comes to pay for roads or pay for internet. It is a little bit more difficult to attract them. And so we're looking at, we've researched federal funds, state funds. This is the most attractive package we've seen come up. And we think a model could be presented to expand to other densities around. If you go up to other densely populated areas, then you also can pick up groups in between, as we would be doing on Burns Parkway. Somebody told me the other day on Burns Parkway, one of the farms there still has dial-up service. So they would be right in this initial backbone, and they could get service.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
one of the advantages of this solution, which I really like, is the fact that it is using fiber. The challenge you have with other solutions that have been offered is you can get a semi-decent speed down, but you can't. But when it comes to what's going up, when you're trying to transmit video for your webinars and your webcasts or whatever, the up isn't nearly as good as what the down is. So by using fiber, those numbers balance out. And this will get us to what is now the state minimum plus the state recommended minimum right now is 25 down and 3 up. They're looking to change it the next couple of years, and this will set us on a great track to be able to accomplish those updated standards down the road.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because some of the people that have been coming to the table are still considering using the copper lines to the house, the coaxial. Typically, we've been told it's 20 meg down. A twisted pair would get maybe 40 down, but you're still gonna have limitations. The nice thing about this is now you have a state-of-the-art to the home. And you would have fiber to the home, and like I said, that ultimately, for those that wanted to pay for it, you could have gig up and gig down. Other comments or questions from the council? So to explain what would need to be done is the council would need to vote, first of all, to apply $140,000 of the CARES money to this project. It's been discussed with our attorney, it's been discussed with the county, and they agree this is appropriate use of the funds. And then secondly, to authorize the Councilmember Rainville to pursue the rest of the process in obtaining the HRA EDA funds from the county so that we can be ready when the county makes a decision next week. Commissioner Look, are you part of that process?
The county HRA? Yes, I'm a trustee on that board.
Okay. And so we would hope that whatever it takes, if there's anything else we need to know, you keep us informed, and we'd like to see this fast track because, like I said, if we can get the approval, the day we get the approval, they start the project. So. Anything else?
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
just to clarify, so if everything is on track for using the HRA funds, then, and everything looks good after its research, then that should be included in the motion too, that we can move ahead with that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because we don't want to have to wait to another meeting because we'll miss the deadline with the county. So we want to prove that under these conditions, if we qualify for the funds, we know the funds are there. If the county says this is a qualifying use, that we would have authorization to proceed with the arrangement with Arvig to service this area.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
on that note, I'd like to make a motion to approve $140,000 worth of CARES Act funds towards the internet project in the southwest corner of the city, partnering with Arvig for the project, as well as authorizing Councilmember Rainville to pursue and investigate the use of HRA funds in the amount of $200,000 to see if this is eligible as a qualifying use for the city. And if that is the case, that $200,000 of those funds would be authorized towards this project.
I'll second that.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Take a breath now.
Does the council want to repeat it, or you want to break it into two?
No, that's fine.
We good? All right, I have a motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Right, and this point, our meeting was for CARES money specific for the internet. I think the rest of the CARES money discussion can be on Tuesday. As I said, we had 2 proposals on the fire station. I only just gave them to Lori, and Lori's off tomorrow, so I wouldn't expect anything until next week. There is contractual language with those that I have given to the attorney to review. So I apologize, first of all, to Lori for getting information in late. We know that the deadline's Tuesday. Things have been breaking fast and furious here, and so I apologize to the council that you'll get information late. I apologize to Lori that I've given her information late and put her on the spot here. So, but if we can get that information out to you next week, that'll be part of our discussion on Tuesday, because that would also be time sensitive, because it's money, a construction project that has to be, again, utilized before the 15th. So that will be a time sensitive discussion on Tuesday. And then we will talk about what monies are remaining, and how we want to utilize those as is appropriate. That being everything that's on our agenda for tonight, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned. Now, for those of you that came here for the area in the southwest on 183rd, Waco, Yakima, Rogers Lake area, how many of you are those? All right. I have a gentleman here that will speak for himself. It's something that we've been working together to try and come up with a reasonable service for that area. I think he's got a great plan. We have expedited what we could with the county and with CenturyLink. And so there's an opportunity there to, with a fixed wire service, to provide good service to your home. So I would recommend that you talk to this gentleman here, if you're so interested. I will tell you that right now that the CenturyLink is going to provide us with what they think they can do, but they're really looking at 2022 potentially. They do have a prospect for some money coming their way in 2021, but they have not said that would be dedicated to now then at all. Comcast has some numbers for that area, but again, they don't have a construction schedule. So we're looking at the immediate, reliable, short-term, and I believe long-term solution would be a fixed wire in that area.
So as a city, I've worked with them, but I actually use the service right now. So there's quite a large sum of money he has to pay to get the wire for the Wi-Fi. And is there city money or the HRA money that could help out in getting that fiber optic to the tower so he can provide us with the Wi-Fi service to get us like on the map?
That has not been discussed. And in my conversations with Scott, we haven't had that discussion, so.
So is it a possibility? Can it be discussed or?
We'd have to know information.
Okay.
So Scott would have to provide that information, so. And we do have more limited funds now, so. Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering, I mean, it sounds like obviously the issue with, I came late, so I don't know technical stuff, but it sounds like a lot of times, like whether it's Comcast or CenturyLink, they're not too interested in, jumping at the bit to put a bunch of lines out here, because obviously our houses are a lot more spread out than say when they're in Ramsey or somewhere else. Now, have we looked at having municipal Wi-Fi? So we get one fiber line into one point, whatever the closest point is, that say the city has land or whatever else, and then have a spread out Wi-Fi, this is stuff that's been done across our country and a lot of actually third world countries that have a lot faster Wi-Fi than we do. Because I mean, even with like I've lived in Elgin for about 5 years now. When we started, we had like 3 meg service or something. And after I want to say it was some of that farm money or whatever, last time that CenturyLink had some money to throw into infrastructure, they put in this new infrastructure, and now we have 10 meg, which of course, to anybody who knows that, that's a joke. So like, I mean, the fact is, I have friends that are literally like 5 miles down the road that have 100 meg or have access to 500 meg. You know, so like the idea that, I get that, hey, we can't make CenturyLink do one thing or another, but maybe if, say, the city got around and said, hey, CenturyLink, here's the deal. We're going to be putting in our own fiber. You can either start providing good service to our customers or just lose all the customers because we're just going to have our municipal Wi-Fi, which would be easily paid for by just having a fee that I don't think anybody here would be going to pay because we're already paying internet anyway, and then just actually get good internet. Has anything like that has been proposed or kind of looked into in that respect? Because obviously, you go over the idea of having a bunch of lines in the ground, obviously that's expensive. That's why if you look at like areas of Africa, areas of Latin America, they don't put lines everywhere. You have fiber, and then you have point-to-point wireless, which the technology is already there and it's not ridiculously expensive, especially when you can compare it to throwing a bunch of lines in the ground. Plus, we have a lot of open areas here, and I would think that even if you put this across our whole town, you know, we might have a lot of people that step up to the plate and just say, hey, I'm fine with having a, you know, antenna on my property. You know, because a lot of people I wouldn't mind having that for, you know, to have really good internet, you know, so that would be something that is considered that, I don't know if you guys have looked into, or if there's some big roadblocks to that make it not possible.
You know, we have discussed a lot of options with other cities that are doing a variety of things. One of the things that came up here is we had a certain amount of money and a certain amount of time to do something that's been on discussion for a couple of years. So we grabbed that. The solution for the rest of this, with the wide open spaces, that's still up for discussion. So that is one of the options. We have been talking about what the legal requirements are, because we talked about assessments. What could we charge residents in order to have this? We would have to have some physically owned item in that. So we can't assess for a private party. So yes, if we had a city-owned Wi-Fi, that is one of the considerations. Because that hadn't come up prior to this, and again, we've had Zayo in the ground for 10 years. We've had dark fiber here for a long time, and this will be the first time we're seeing it lit up in our town. So some of these options weren't there because we didn't have a partner to do anything with. So now as we get this started here, now we can look at, okay, what are the other options throughout the city?
So,
What else
Mr.
can we
Mayor,
do?
since everybody's here, do we need to break up?
Yes, I'm sorry. So our meeting is officially done. So as a council, we'll dismiss the council because it's no longer part of our discussion. But if people want to stay around for a few minutes and talk about that, we just won't be doing it as a council.
I just have a question about the proposed area, which is great. Was there any discussion with the provider as far as